Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Storytelling That Sticks for Business and Life podcast, where we talk about public speaking, storytelling, TED Talks, and everything and anything that goes into the process of conceiving and delivering content and ideas in a speech, a TED Talk, whatever, while standing at the front of the room, any room. Whether it's a small boardroom, a breakout room in a hotel, or on the main stage of a conference center, which is really awesome. Or maybe, and I've had this happen, a private room in the back of a restaurant. Well, in this episode, I want you to take a minute to remember a moment just after you've given a speech or presentation. So I want you to visualize a room where you've given a speech or presentation. Have you got it? Can you see it? Now, remember the moment right after you've given your speech. Maybe it's immediately after or later on in the day when you're thinking about how it went, how the audience responded, and how you felt about how it went. Can you remember those moments after you're done and you're by yourself? And no matter how many speeches you give, there's always that question that creeps in, at least for me it is. And the question is this: did they like it? Did it go over well? Did anything I said make a difference in someone's life? Because there are times when you know your speech worked well because people tell you. They come up to you after your speech and you get some good feedback and you walk away feeling good about yourself. But that doesn't always happen. And in this episode, I want to talk about how you process the speech when you don't get that kind of feedback or any feedback at all. When you think you did a good job, but all you get is a round of applause, and then everyone gets up and leaves and goes about their business. And when that happens, and it happens often enough for it to be an issue, at least in my experience, I often feel like shouting out, "Could somebody please throw me a bone? Some positive feedback that I can walk away feeling good about?" Anybody? Nobody? Really? Because the truth is, you rarely get the kind of immediate and specific feedback you need as a speaker. Now, I can remember this one time, it was a couple of years ago, and I'm actually seeing it as I'm telling you this. I can see this room. I just given a pre-lunch keynote speech in McCormick Place in Chicago, my hometown. Now, this was a huge conference center with thousands of people and tons of different meeting rooms all over the place. And there were about 150 people in my breakout room. And when I was finished, everyone got up and left the room in a hurry because they had lunch to get to. I mean, they left really fast. Within 3 minutes, the room was empty. And I was left standing there in this room. And the only people in there with me were the waiters and the staff clearing the tables and cleaning up and getting ready for the next session. I mean, the guy that hired me and introduced me left the room too, because he had somewhere else to be as well. And I had to stand there alone with my thoughts. And because they all got up and left in such a hurry, I had no idea if they liked it or not. And I felt kind of hollow at that moment, because the reason you spend hours and hours thinking about what you want to say and how you want to say it, choosing your stories and preparing your slides, is because you want to have an impact on people. Am I right? You want to teach them something that they can use. And then you get up there in the front of the room and you give it your best shot. You put your whole self into it, heart and soul and mind. And then in an instant, it's over. And you don't know. That's the problem. You don't know. And you have to kind of find a way to fill that hollow feeling with your own sense of how you did. And over time, I've come to realize that nobody in my audience, nobody in your audience knows how to give you the kind of feedback you need. And I'm not just talking about praise or applause. I need something specific. We need something specific, like, Did they really like that one idea that you shared or that story that you told that really hit home with them? I mean, that's what I want. I want to know, did something stick with you? Did my story stick with you? Did it work? Did it move you? Did that content, did that idea, did that phrase, the pace, did that stick with you? Is that going to help you in your life? Now, because I've been doing this for so long, I mean, literally 25, 30 years, it's been a lot all over the world. And because I've not only given keynotes, but I've been invited to speak at some of the same conferences year after year. And because of that, I get to run into people who've attended my sessions in the previous years. And some of them will come up to me all excited to see me and to tell me that they're using something that I taught them and that they love my methodology and my story theater method and stuff. And man, oh man, does that ever feel good, right? When people tell you that they love your stuff, because that's what we need, right? Something specific. You and I need to know that they got something from us that they can use. But more often than not, we'll never know. Because in many instances, they get up and they leave the room. They go back to their lives, and we're left to wonder, to question. And if you're a sensitive and sometimes insecure person like I am, did I nail it or did I suck? Or was that just average? Because sometimes, based on the way people react or don't react, I have to fill in that blank, hollow feeling myself, which brings me to the law of 50 impressions. And it's on page 310 of my book, Doug Stevenson's Story Theater Method. Now, I lay out what I describe as a philosophy for how you can know without anyone in your audience telling you that you've made a difference, that you've planted a seed that will blossom in someone's life at a time and place in the future, in their moment of need. So here's how the law of 50 impressions works. And it comes from my own experience, but it's not just my experience. Many, many other speakers have felt the same way. I'm not alone in this. So I'm going to shift gears to tell you how I came up with this. Now, in my life, I've made some of the same mistakes over and over and over again. How about you? Can you relate? I've made some of the same bad decisions or made the same mistake many times over the years. And even though there were warning signs telling me not to do it, I'd go ahead and do it again, screw up again. Because in my experience, it's really difficult to learn a hard lesson, a life lesson, the first time. But eventually, over time, I did get it. The pain of making this stupid mistake or bad choice over and over again would get to be too much, or there was no longer any way I could blame my mistake on someone else, even though there was ample blame to go around. But like I said, I eventually came to realize that I was the culprit in my own chaos. I was the only common denominator in all of my failures and bad choices. And finally and painfully, I'd come smack up against myself and have an aha moment. And so I came up with this idea that it takes many mistakes, many failures and small disasters for us to wake up and change, to break the pattern. And I call all of these warning signs, all of these reminders from friends and loved ones, all the signs from the universe telling us to stop. Don't go there. Don't do it again. And I call them impressions. Okay, impressions. All the warning signs, all the signals, all the hints, they're impressions. Because if we let them, these warning signs should make a powerful impression on us that we pay attention to. So I saw this pattern. I saw these mistakes, failures, and how many it took. And I decided for this 50 impressions thing to pick a random number of how many impressions it takes before we have that aha moment, that revelation. And I picked the number 50. And it goes like this. In this philosophy, it takes 50 impressions for us to finally get the message that we need to make a change. Now, what's an impression? An impression can be very subtle, like You read something on a bumper stick in front of you while you're waiting in traffic, or you catch a glimpse of something on a billboard. Or it can be almost unconscious, like a fragment of a conversation you overhear from someone talking on a cell phone, talking about something else. Or it can be a lyric from a song or a scene in a movie or TV show. Or it can be more direct, like a close friend telling you not to take that job or not to date that person. The impressions can come from anywhere and everywhere. They can also come from inside you, from your own gut feelings, warning you not to make the same mistake again, because you can feel it. You can feel it in your gut. I'm going to do it again. I shouldn't do this. So, in this philosophy, this concept, it can take up to 50 impressions, 50 messages from the universe, 50 signs, 50 hints for us to really get the message and break the pattern. Now, 50 is a random number. It could be 15 impressions or 20 or 30 impressions. But what this means for you and I, as speakers and storytellers, is that this same thing is happening for the people listening to your speech. They're taking in your ideas and hearing your stories. And the things you say and do, your lessons, your stories, make an impression on them, on your audience member. And how it plays out is that in your speech, you make a lot of impressions, plant a lot of seeds in people's minds, in their consciousness. You give them good stuff. They take it in and internalize it, and it's in there. Okay. It's like a seed. Your idea, your lesson, they're somewhere inside that audience member's brain, in their memory bank, their heart and their soul. In other words, you made a deposit. You can think of it like that. You made a deposit. You deposited an idea, a concept. It's a seed, but you made a deposit, and it will pay dividends later on when that person needs to make a withdrawal. It's like this. All of those impressions are in there, right? Impressions that were made on you, impressions that were made on me. They were made a long time ago, years, decades ago. Okay, so they've been in there, but they pay dividends at some point later on in life. Not when the impression was made, but later when you needed the lesson. Because in my experience, when I finally have my aha moment, I can actually track it back to someone who said something to me a long time ago, or a scene from a movie that made an impression on me a long time ago, but it did not pay off then. It paid off later when I needed to learn the lesson. And this is something you can know and believe that will help you in that moment after your speech when you're questioning whether you made a difference in anyone's life at all. Did anyone get anything? And I'm telling you now, and I want you to believe me when I say this, every time you take the time to thoughtfully consider what you want to say and how you want to say it, and you work on your speech and you deliver your speech with confidence and compassion, you have made a difference. You have made one of the 50 impressions that I'm talking about. But here's the thing, and it's rare, but it happens. Every once in a while, someone will come up to you after your speech. I mean, immediately after your speech, and they will look at you and they will be emotional. And they will share with you that you've just made a difference in their life. You've made a change in their life. And for that person, you were number 50. You were the 50th impression. And boy, oh boy, does that ever feel good. Have you ever had that happen? Because I haven't. Oh my God, that just feels so good. But what about the other 200 people that were in the room? I mean, you just gave a speech. 200 people who are in the room. One person comes up and says, you've changed my life. But what about the other 200 people? The other 199 people, what about them? They just got up and walked out and went back to their busy lives. Did you make an impression on them too? Did you? Well, I go back to my own experience for this. When I think of all the times when I didn't heed the warning signs in the moment, when I didn't listen to my friends or my own gut instincts telling me in no uncertain terms, don't do this, Douglas, don't go there again. Don't get involved with that job. Don't get involved with that person. You're going to get hurt. And I realize that all of those impressions added up over time. All of those deposits added up. But I never got to tell the person who gave me that advice. I never got to tell them thank you because it was maybe decades ago. I never got to tell them you made a difference. You were one of the 50 impressions for me. Like that scene in the movie Hatari that changed my life, or that speaker that I saw early on in my speaking career, W. Mitchell, or the advice that my dad gave me, or my best friend Jill back in high school getting up in my face and telling me to stop being such a jerk, or that lyric in a Jackson Browne song, or watching Mick Jagger strutting around all over the stage. Impressions, impressions, impressions. They all add up and eventually they pay off. Now, here's something to consider. Our audience members have one main job. And you know what that is? To receive. That's their job and responsibility, to listen and learn and then go back to their lives and take what they need and use it, implement it. And for them, the way that they give immediate feedback is to applaud and maybe say thank you. But you have to let go of the need for them to tell you how you made a difference in their lives, because they may not know until later on in their lives, maybe years or decades later. Because when a seed is planted, it doesn't blossom immediately. It takes time. And when you and I plant seeds, make impressions in someone's life, who knows when that is going to pay off? Who knows when they're going to have that revelation that that thing that you said, that I said, causes them to make a change. So let's go back to that room in Chicago where everyone just got up and walked away, or the luncheon in Atlanta, or the keynote in Vienna that I talked about, or the workshop I did in Tokyo, or that time in Boston or Toronto or Chattanooga. And this one happened recently here in Tucson, where I now live. So I did a keynote, about 100 people. And as people were packing up to go to the reception, because it was a reception right after my speech, and you can imagine people wanted to get to the reception because there was like booze and food. Well, a man at one of the tables said to me as I was walking by, "That was the best keynote I've ever seen." Wow. Wow. Pretty cool, huh? But he was only one guy. Does that mean that the other people felt the same? Nobody else said that. Not even the person standing next to him. So, do I focus on the guy who said it was the best keynote he'd ever seen? Or do I get insecure about all the other people who didn't say anything to me? Nothing positive, just like, oh, good job. Here's my promise to you. Over the years, you and I have planted lots of seeds, made lots of impressions. And you know what I've concluded? I think that I was impression number 27 for that blank-faced 20-something guy who was nowhere near his 50th impression. I was only number 27 for him. He was nowhere near the 50th impression. I've also been impression number 38 for someone who was on the path to number 50, but they weren't there yet. And I'm pretty sure I've been the 49th impression for someone in my audience somewhere. I was so close to being that person's number 50 and getting that big, "You changed my life" response. But you know what? That's okay with me. Because if I was number 49 for someone, that means that you may get to have the experience of being number 50. That's right. You can get to be the 50th impression. And when you are number 50, I want you to remember this. You are reaping the benefit of all of the speakers and trainers and storytellers, all of the people that came before you who made their deposits, who made their impressions. And so this law of 50 impressions has helped me to know that it doesn't matter what number I am on the path to number 50. I am always making an impression. And so it is for you. I just don't get to know what number I was. So when you find yourself standing there after a speech in an empty room after everyone leaves, or sitting in an Uber on your way back to the airport, or sitting at your desk wondering, questioning whether the choice you made to tell that story or use that image or include 78 bullet points, when you're questioning and worrying and thinking all of these insecure thoughts, I want you to stop. Just stop questioning whether what you did with your speech or presentation made a difference. Hey, listen up. You planted a seed. You made a deposit. You, not just your content and stories, but you made an impression that someone will remember for the rest of their life. Your very presence and personality and humor and brilliant delivery. You were one of the 50 impressions that led someone to that life-changing aha moment where they realize they can break the pattern of mistakes, failures, and bad decisions. You made a difference. I made a difference. Every one of you listening to me right now, if we all do our part together, we all add up to more than 50 impressions. And that's how I, and hopefully now you, can rest comfortably in the knowledge that with every speech, every story, every presentation, you make a difference. I want you to get that. You make a difference. You just don't always get to know it in the moment. And if this episode triggered a memory for you of someone who is one of your 50 impressions, but you never told them, I want you to find a way to contact them and let them know, because you just might make their day. Because many of you listening, when you contacted me and given me feedback about my episodes, about my Storytelling That Sticks for Business and Life podcast, when you've sent me an email, when you've sent me a note, you've let me know that I was one of those impressions for you. And oh my gosh, I need that. You need that. So let people know, and never, 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 never stop believing that with your good intentions, your good work, your stories, and your content and ideas, you do make a difference. Okay? Take it in, breathe that in, and then breathe that out and get back to work. All right, well, that's it for this episode. If you feel that you learned something valuable today, something that you can use that will make your stories stick, stories that make you and your business memorable, marketable, and monetizable, there are 3 things I'd like you to do. First, click on the follow or subscribe button and leave a review wherever you listen. And second, share this podcast with your friends and coworkers, your email list, and on social media. And third, connect with me on LinkedIn. And when you're ready to get serious about taking your stories to the next level, or if you have an important speech, presentation, or TED Talk coming up, or if you want some guidance on how to make the transition to becoming a professional speaker, let's schedule your free 30-minute coaching session where we can get to know each other and see if we're a good fit. And as always, I'd love to hear from you with your questions and comments. Let me know that you're out there listening and learning. You can send an email with your questions, comments, and suggestions to Deborah@DougStevenson.com. That's Deborah, DEBORAH, @DougStevenson.com. Hey, thanks for listening. Until the next episode, I'm Doug Stevenson.